I'm Tony Messenger.
And I'm Aisha-Sultan. Welcome to the chat room. The question we're going to talk about this week is how the de facto abortion ban in Texas, the law that was recently passed, is going to affect Missouri and other states.
So Aisha, the law in Texas, of course, it's being challenged in court, but because the Supreme Court didn't immediately put a hold on it, it is in effect banning abortion in Texas right now. And there are a couple of really important things about this law that we need to recognize and be prepared for in Missouri and frankly, the rest of the country. And the first part, and I think the part that most people will just be so offended by in terms of what it potentially could do to our society, is that the law creates legal vigilantism. Basically, it says that any citizen who suspects that somebody, their neighbor, whomever, might have participated in to help somebody get an abortion, even in another state. So let's say an Uber driver drove somebody to come to Missouri or Illinois or somewhere else to get an abortion. That person can be sued by any individual citizen for up to $10,000. It is one of the most astounding things I've ever heard of in a law. And the reason they did that is so the Supreme Court wouldn't immediately toss it because of the government being involved in violating Roe versus Wade. Somehow they're making this weird argument that citizens can violate Roe v. Wade, but the government can't. It's just one of the most bizarre constructions of a law I've ever seen.
Well, beyond being bizarre and astounding, frankly, it's disgusting and immoral, because to turn people who have zero to do with a person making their own healthcare decision, giving them this sledgehammer, this weapon of being able to abuse our court system to punish people who are trying to help them access that healthcare is absolutely disgusting. It's infuriating, and it's really frightening for what it means for our society. So, for example, an interesting part of the law is that if the person who has zero standing whatsoever, I don't understand how their rights or they were affected by someone else who could be a complete stranger to them, that person's healthcare decision, why they should even have any kind of standing in a lawsuit like that. But second of all, if they lose the lawsuit, they are not responsible for the person who they sued, whose time and money they wasted. But if they prevail, the plaintiff then has to, or I guess the defendant in that case, has to then pay their legal fees. Where is the fairness and justice in that? I mean, I don't understand this at all.
One of the things I like to do with laws is if a certain group of people, let's say Republican men, for instance, support a law, as is the current case in the Texas law, then let's take a look at those elements of the law and compare it to laws that they might be opposed to. So right now, Republicans tend to be opposed nationally, at least elected Republicans, to vaccine mandates and to mask mandates. Imagine if we in Missouri, or if President Biden or in any other state passed a law identical to the Texas anti-abortion law, but for mask mandates. So if I were walking in your neighborhood and saw you not wearing a mask in violation of the mandate, I could sue you in court for $10,000 because your failure to wear a mask is possibly having an effect on my health. The irony there is, at least in that case, people who aren't wearing masks and aren't getting vaccine absolutely are affecting other people's health. People who get an abortion are affecting their bodies and their health, and it doesn't affect some stranger who's coming in to make a lawsuit. So imagine if we just decide that it's okay to pass vigilante laws to let anybody go into court for any reason whatsoever, and to cause tremendous financial and other sorts of stresses on people's lives. I just find that to be unbelievably absurd. I want to believe that ultimately the court is going to rule that this law is unconstitutional for a variety of reasons. But until that case makes its way all the way back to the Supreme Court, For now, that law is in effect in Texas, and it's affecting the entire nation because there are already women in Texas who are leaving that state to go get their health care in other states.
Well, and as we know, even as the law is written, that's still against the law in Texas to leave the state to get an abortion somewhere
Right,
else.
right.
That can still be penalized under this. So not only, I mean, so this is what really gets to me about the hypocrisy of people who support and pass laws like this. Not only did you mention that if it affected them and their beliefs, that they would be completely opposed to the tyranny and fascism in doing something like that, that when it affects, when it goes with their belief system, they're totally fine with this kind of overreach, something that really tears at the fabric of our society, of people trying to spy and regulate and question and punitively attack other people's private healthcare decisions. I can't even think of a corollary because, like you said, with public health, there is a public interest in everyone being masked and vaccinated in the middle of a pandemic that's contagious. Nobody's abortion is contagious. It's not going to do anything to anybody else if a woman has to go terminate a pregnancy for whatever reasons she has to do that. But I will say that we know that in other states that have already passed laws, they're just waiting to see how this plays out, that Roe v. Wade will no longer be the law of the land in Missouri. We know that Missouri has already passed the heartbeat bill, and they're just waiting to see how all of these things play out. And in many parts of the state and the country, because there are no abortion providers, or there are so few, that there is de facto no choice for a woman to be able to make that decision already.
You've been listening to The Chat Room. We'll talk to you again next week.